Where she belongs, where she belongs. She is home.
Right. Hello, hello. Welcome to our Sunday gathering. First Gallery Check the Knox Legacy, our TokiTV, our special time to get together, hang out, and get some education and learn what we can do to help what we're doing with the Southern residents. Before we get started, let's just go around the room briefly and check in, see how everyone's doing. Peggy, how and where are you?
Good morning, everybody. I'm in New Zealand, and we just had our event yesterday, Playdate with Popoto Maui, the critically endangered New Zealand dolphin, of which there are only about 48 left. So it was a good event, a lot of awareness, raising awareness and outreach. So I'm glad for that.
Awesome. Thanks, Peggy, and thanks for all you do. For those of you watching, go ahead and type in where you're watching from as well. We'd like to stay engaged with y'all, and everybody hit the share button. You're going to want to hear from Susan today and all about American Rivers and what we can do. So hit some share buttons there. Christina, how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here, and nice to see you, Susan. Thanks for coming on the show today. Appreciate you and everything you do. And yeah, let's talk about it.
Awesome. Deb Cruz, how are you?
Hanging tough. Want to hear about the rivers. got a special place in my heart.
Yeah, today's going to be really good. Alma, how and where are you?
Hi. Here in Key West, where the Atlantic Ocean meets the Gulf of Mexico. And we had pilot whales visit us last week, along with some dolphins nearby. So we think they might have interacted, which is really cool. But it's a beautiful day here, and I'm excited to see Susan Woodward and hear what she has to say.
That's good. I'm so grateful, and we can talk about that in a minute. But I've been bugging Susan for a while now to come on. So I'm really happy that she's here. Howard, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. It's a lovely cloudy day here, and we have two macro lines of big transient orcas in the neighborhood, one in Hood Canal and the other to the east of Whidbey in Saratoga Passage. So all is well here, and we're having a birthday party for Susan's sister this afternoon.
Happy birthday to Wendy. Yay, happy birthday. You want to do, before we get to, Deb Cruz is singing. Hold on, let me unmute that.
No, I was saying everybody sing, and I started singing, and nobody sang along with me. And I saw I was muted.
We
Oh,
tried
we
that.
can wave our finger along with you.
We could try it at the end to do a group song. It's really interesting when we try to do it, but let's do it at the end because we want people to join, not leave. So we'll save we'll save that.
Did anybody catch that?
Before we get into the rivers and before we with Susan, Howard, you shared with us a little video. Should we share that today and
Oh,
just
sure.
start off that way because our beloved Southern residents, where are they, Howard?
Well, this was from either March 4th or 10th or both, but when KPOD, 14, I believe, members went down to Monterey, Monterey Bay to
Wow.
slurp up some of the salmon down there that are headed into the Sacramento River system. So that should come alive any second now.
All right, let's watch it. No sound, huh?
No sound.
Okay, just making sure.
Drum shot.
Awesome.
Look at that.
Do we know the names?
Oh, I couldn't tell you right off. I don't
Okay.
see any I recognize.
K-Pod.
It's K-Pod, right. They're all K-Poddies.
Jeez.
It's beautiful footage.
Yes, it is.
My hometown. It's exciting whenever they go there. I'm
Oh,
super excited.
Wow. Look at that water, man. The best part was seeing that fish hanging out.
Rainbow.
Man, that's gorgeous.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's a nice little reminder.
Yeah. I don't know what I did there. Okay, there we are. Beautiful. Well, and it's why we're here, right? It's why we're gathered and why we gather every single week. And really highlighting the work that a lot of folks are doing on their own with their jobs, throughout their life. And so that brings us to Susan. Susan, welcome to TokiTV as our special guest today. No stranger to us as well. Really, just to my personal saw Susan at Gathering of Hearts, and instantly there was a gathering of our hearts. And it's just that's how it is, right? With these people. So with everyone who's here for them. I've been bugging Susan for a while. I think even before Gathering of Hearts to come on TokiTV, and I'm really pleased. And then since that time, since I've been bugging her, now she's in a new position and making a bigger impact. But I'd like, if you don't mind, Susan, to kind of just walk us through how you got involved in this work. Maybe you can start there and give us a little bit of your background and where we are now.
Yeah, I can do that. Thanks so much, you guys, for inviting me to have a conversation today. The Southern residents are so near and dear to my heart, as they are to everybody here and all the folks everywhere around the world. But yeah, so my background, I'll just go through it really briefly. I've been in communications either as a journalist or a communications specialist or a communications manager in all sorts of different positions for different nonprofit organizations, state government, the private sector a little bit too, for quite some time. The through line for me and all the things that I've done with my career has always been around the environment. I started off over here in the States working for the Los Angeles Times a couple decades ago, was covering environmental issues way back then. That's when I learned about people like Paul Watson and the stuff that he was doing and still continues to do for whales and dolphins who, have always been near and dear to me. I mean, I grew up on the beaches in Australia. I was surfing, boogie boarding as a kid, with the whales and dolphins that are out there all up and down, migrating up and down the East Coast. So I guess I would start with that. Just this has been a theme in my life for a long time. During the pandemic, I started a podcast called Sentient Planet, and I wanted to take a look at our human relationship with non-human beings around the world, wherever I could kind of felt a draw to a particular species, and just investigate a little bit what our relationship is with a particular species, who are the people on the ground who are doing something to ensure that they continue, that their lives continue. And being based here in the Pacific Northwest, I had heard bits and pieces about the southern resident orca. I saw my first orca ever when I was up in Alaska, in Southeast Alaska, on a cruise with my dad, a small boat cruise back in 2003. And this great big, 6-foot high dorsal fin popped out of the water up there. And I was like, wow, what is that all about? And so it started to investigate it over the years. Who were these beings around us that we share the Salish Sea with? So I spent the first few episodes during the pandemic talking to people like Howard and Ken Balcom and Peggy Oakey and all the folks who I could find that were doing some great work, Earth Law Institute, all sorts of people who were involved in doing anything to help the southern residents. And that's when I learned just how desperate their plight was. And then I became also involved in doing whatever I could do to bring attention to Tokitai and her captivity. And so that is the topic of some of those podcasts as well. I worked with a small team of people, small creative group of people to pull some of those together and broadcast them. And they got, thousands of people listening to them around the world. So that was really cool. And then, I came to know some of you guys, and you are my inspiration for kind of looking for opportunities in my career where I could use the communication skills I have as a communications professional and deepen that work specifically in areas that would make a difference to the southern resident. And so that's how I came to be really attracted to a position that opened up at American Rivers for a communications director here in the Northwest, and explored that. And lo and behold, they really liked me and I really liked them. And the bottom line is that, half of my job is dedicated to working on the Snake River and the wider Columbia Basin, and everything we can do to return health and well-being to those river basins. And of course, that includes whatever we can do to remove the lower Snake River dams. And another part of my work is working in the Yakima Basin, which is also a part of the Greater Columbia. So I find myself in this new role and really entrenched now in conservation, which when I think about it is really where my heart has been my whole time. It's just taken a while for me to move through these other paths in my career to finally be embedded in that work. So I'm now there and with all of you guys and doing whatever I can, and I'm loving it.
It's really awesome. America, we were playing on not playing, but researching on the website a little bit, and just the work that's being done is so, it's so good. And so this is such a good marriage, I think, for you to be with them. I don't know if they know how lucky they are to have you there. I hope they do, because you'll be able to share their work in such a way that really just it's inspiring to people, and it gets people involved, which is what we want to do. And with all your other background, the podcast, I do want to put that link back up real quick, because I don't want to skim over that, because I think people really should write this down. Pencils. Oops, there it went back. Deb Cruz and I fight over the buttons sometimes. There we go. So yeah, you guys take a screenshot or write that down. But some of these podcasts, really informative, again, about Toki and, which is how we all got together and were brought together. So I really do.
Yeah. When you land on that page, Annette, you'll, just folks who go there, you'll have to go back to season 1 to be able to find the ones that are specific about Tokitai and her family.
Okay. And I'm going to try to open it up real quick so people can see. For some reason, it wasn't letting me do it earlier. So I'm not sure why my computer's being weird about that, but I'll get that up.
I
What?
promise you it's there.
What's that?
I promise you the website is there.
No, it's there. I think I don't know why I don't know why it's sending me to a landing page, a different kind of landing page. So I'm not sure what that's about, but I'm sure it's because I have like 50 pages open in the background. So I'll work on that. But so Howard, some of the work that American Rivers are doing, some of the work that they are doing. Are you familiar, Howard? Have you been involved with?
Not in great detail. I know I've seen the communications, and they come out and say what's near and dear to my heart too is we got to bring down those dams on the Snake River, and you spell out the reasons why and the ways to do it, and that's such important work because a lot of people just don't understand, and there's so much distractions and misinformation out there that it's really important to have a good, solid, well-founded source of information about not only why but how. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing. Yeah, I've been watching it, but not in great detail, and I am eager to hear any sort of latest insights or information or anything that you might have to tell about it.
Yeah.
And, K-Pod in Monterey is wonderful to see, and it's exciting for everyone down there, but it's also a reminder that they're desperate for salmon because that's a long way to go. That's close to 1,000 miles all the way down. We hope that there were some salmon along the way and they found some down there, but this is the scarce time of year. In January, February, March, until the spring Chinooks start to show up, and they're very scarce too. But right now, over these winter months, is when the southern residents have the hardest time, and especially for any pregnant females or nursing females. That's when their young are at the greatest risk because they're just not getting enough to eat. So, it's all about increasing salmon populations. And I would like to make a repeat announcement from last week, and for Susan's sake, about the project that we have underway, although 2 or 3, maybe 4 years, unless we can expedite it before it'll actually happen. But on the Center for Whale Research Ranch on the Elwha River. It's 45 acres, including about 700 feet that actually cross the river.
Mm-hmm.
And the lower Elwha Clallam tribe has a project. They just need our permission, which they have resoundingly, to construct a side channel. Because that stretch of the river, because of the dikes and the way that it's been sort of funneled, is a high velocity stretch. So big boulders and just too much turbulence for salmon to dig redds. So, which are the nests where the eggs are developed. And so what's needed is a more slow meandering side channel, which will also reduce the velocity of the main channel. So this is a project that's going to happen. We just found out less than 2 weeks ago. And so we're gonna just go gung-ho and do everything we can to make it happen as fast as possible. But it'll be about a 1/4 mile of a side channel. The property actually also borders property that has just been acquired by the tribe. So it'll go across some tribal property as well as the Center for Whale Research Big Salmon Ranch property. And it'll involve log jams, LWDs, large woody debris in the technical term, which helps to kind of divert and slow down the channels and give a lot of resting and hiding places for the smolts. And the estimate is that it will allow for about 200 reds to be made there. And so each of those has, I don't know how many hundreds of eggs, and some of those will grow into smolts, and some of those will go out to sea, and some of those will come back as full-size salmon. So it's a huge way that we can actually produce more salmon, as removing the Snake River dams would do. So, but on a much larger scale. I mean, this is really a small scale. It's only about a 70-mile long river, but it's fairly pristine and has a lot of places, but for salmon to spawn. But this will actually greatly enhance the productive river, to dig that side channel and allow the salmon to come in and spawn. So we're really excited about it, and you'll be hearing more, I promise. So that was my side channel. But I'm eager to hear more about Snake River and American rivers and whatever else you're doing, Susan.
Well, the Elwha is such a great story, right, of what can happen and how a river can start to recover when dams are removed. And the same thing can be said of the 4 dams that came down on the Klamath, much more recently. And actually, we've got a little video. I don't know if you want to show that at some point today, Annette, but there's a very short video that I shared with Annette of what the river down there in Klamath looks like, before and after the dams. And it's just really inspiring. And it's a nice visual for me to keep in my mind as I'm doing the work I'm doing, because it is possible for those Snake River dams to come down. One of the main differences, of course, is that these were privately owned dams, which is not the case with this lower Snake River dams, are owned by U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So it's a different kind of battle. But it can happen, and it does happen, and dams do come down. There are, I think people would be surprised to know just how many dams we have across the United States. There's at least 90,000 of them. And American Rivers, our goal is we're in the dam, bring them down business, right? We would like to see at least 30,000 of those come down over the next, between now and actually 2030. So that's our goal. Is it 2030 or 2050? Let me just check my notes on that. I'll check my notes on that. But anyway, there's tens of thousands of dams left over from this, a former era when dam building was the thing to do. And now we're kind of having to reconcile with the fact that that they're no longer sustainable. Some dams, do some good work, but a lot of them are no longer economic. They are no longer safe. There's all sorts of problems with them. So we would like to see a lot of them come down and a lot more rivers areas restored. And of course, the dams that we care about the most, that everybody does, is those colossal ones on the lower Snake. American Rivers is absolutely dedicated to seeing those come down. But we hit some of the same barriers that everybody does, right? The political will to do that is still not there in the way that we need it to be. And we keep working on that. So American Rivers is, we're 100 or so people, just maybe 125 people now, been around for over 50 years. We're trying to work out how to scale up, bringing down dams across the country. And we're very focused particularly on these 4 on the lower Snake River. The organization is filled with some of the smartest, most amazing and passionate people I've ever met. I feel really honored to be working with them. And we are going to keep pushing on this as much as we can.
Thanks, Susan. Let's watch that. Let's watch that you sent over.
So yeah, this is the before and after of the Klamath. Thanks, Annette.
Yeah. I'm not sure why it's taking that. I don't know what StreamYard is doing. It keeps moving us around. That's a nice visual. I mean, it's short.
Quick fact check, if I could. So American Rivers, our goal is it's actually by 2050. We'd like to see 30,000 dams come down, and we'd like to see 1 million miles of rivers across the United States protected. That's what we're working towards.
Wow. That's an amazing goal.
We're going to do it.
Yeah, you are.
There are several questions that people
do
are
it.
asking.
Go
The
for
era
it.
of dams is over. Free the rivers. I love
Oh,
that.
okay. So we go back to Deborah Ellers putting in about the SEIS.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a really important call to action. This is actually one I sent to you, Annette. So the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Bureau of Rec do have a public comment period that's open until May the 9th. If you sign up for American Rivers Pacific Northwest alerts, we can direct you to a page where you can make a public comment. We urge you to do that. We can also provide, there it is, we can also provide it in the slide after this, but please do make a public comment on that. So this is a big deal. This is a supplemental environmental impact statement. You know, American Rivers, we kind of work in all sorts of realms, listening to all voices. We're kind of in the middle of the spectrum, and it's really super important that you guys who are out there doing everything you're doing to bring attention to this issue, that please participate in these types of opportunities. The goal here is to get 500,000 people to submit a public comment so that we can flood the federal government with public comments that are all about, please bring the Snake River dams down. So we would want you to center that in your public comments. So 500,000. So you've got between now and May the 9th. And if you go to this page, there should be some pretty good information about talking points you can use to make your comment letter. So please do that. It's like the most important action we can probably take right now. What we don't want is a bunch of public comments that are flooded from pro-dam people, right? We want to make sure that people who want those dams coming down and who really care about the orca and the salmon, et cetera, that's the overwhelming message that is heard here.
That's awesome. And this is open until May 9th, you said?
May 9th, correct, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, guys. So for those of you watching, I did drop the link in the chat. And so you should be able to go on in and click that link. But you did mention some other links. And I think we should put those up, Susan, because if someone misses it and they go to American River to the initial sign up page, that's probably an important first step, right? This one
it is. If you sign up for our emails from American Rivers, then you're going to get these things called action alerts. There you go. And we're very closely aligned with the tribes who are really at the forefront of this action to remove the lower Snake River dams and also, really to enhance the health of the whole Columbia Basin. But we know this is the cornerstone. This is the most important action that needs to be taken to kickstart that healing for the basin. So yeah, you can sign up here. You'll get action alerts from us, and those action alerts that American Rivers sends out are very aligned with the tribal leadership and what the tribes would also like us to be doing, all of us. So we'll be working hand in hand with those guys. So the Army Corps of Engineers is the most important action that you can take right now. And I can go into some of the, if you want to, I can go into some of the other studies that are being done out there that you all should know about as well and be keeping an eye on. But yes, this is the most important action right now.
Awesome. Yeah, we want to know all of it because people will go back and refer to this show later when they're like, okay, when they're ready to do the actions and stuff.
Yeah.
Throughout the week. So as much info as you can give us, the better.
There's so much to share, and then just please also know that I'm new to the organization, and so I'm learning every day as well. But there, something that's really important for people to understand is that from Americans' perspective, we want the dams down, and we want, the whole Columbia Basin needs that. That is so integral to the health of the whole Pacific Northwest. That ecosystem is the thing, as far as we can see, that keeps our forests evergreen, that keeps snow on our mountains, that keeps salmon in the rivers, that feeds our orca and our bear and our wolf and all of our top predators, keeps the water clean, all of that. And we know that, there are people who don't want to see those dams come down because they are fearful of the effects that might have on their livelihood, their farms, their agriculture, the transportation that they are used to, barging and that kind of thing on the river. How we get a small percentage of our hydropower that comes from those dams. A really important statistic is that the lower Snake River dams only contribute 4% of the power for the whole of the Pacific Northwest. It's a very small percentage, and it's something that we can source in other ways through cleaner energy sources. So there are 4 main areas that are being looked at through state and federal funds for current studies to make sure essentially that everybody can be made whole when river dams come down on the lower Snake. One is a study on recreation activities. One is a study on water supply. Another one is a study on transportation. And one that'll be coming later in the year is all about our power and our energy. So again, those are all going to look at, what are the impacts on those 4 areas when the lower Snake River dams come down, and how can we make sure that people who are affected, are made whole. So the water supply study is a really interesting one. That's the one that came out the most recently. There's a draft that is out at the moment that was done by the Bureau of Rec and the Washington Department of Ecology. And I think the key finding in that study is, lo and behold, when the lower Snake River dams come down, there will be more than enough water in a free-flowing river to make sure that agriculture gets all its needs met, to make sure there's enough water for all the needs that we have, everything that's currently supplied, and potentially even more. There's changes that would need to be made to infrastructure to be able to access that water when the river comes down. But we're seeing from that government study that there's no good reason for those dams to stay from that perspective. And I think you're going to see the same thing in all the other studies as well. So it's important to kind of keep an eye on what's happening with those studies and look for opportunities to make public comment. I think the next one you'll be looking for is the power and energy one coming out later this year. There's usually public workshops that are held. There are public comments that you can make online and that kind of thing. And so again, I guess my biggest message today is look for those opportunities, make sure you're getting the correspondence so you know when the opportunities are available, and then please, follow the instructions and participate and add your voice, so that we make sure again that each one of those government studies that's being done or being funded by government is an opportunity for us to say again and again, we support this holistic approach, and the Snake River dams need to come down as a big part of that.
Awesome. I can hear Deb Cruz typing away. Is that Deb Cruz typing away? Or maybe that's Peggy. I'm not sure. I heard somebody typing. Deb didn't look like she was typing. This is all.
I was muted, so.
Okay. Sorry, Peggy. And thank you, Peggy, again for introducing me to Susan in person. I forgot to put that plug out there. I don't see you, Peggy, but I hear you. So that's interesting. There you are. There you are. Thank you. Christina.
No, I think it's wonderful, Susan. You are awesome, and all that information is really important. That's what we're always trying to do, is get everyone to go and comment on these particular So thank you for reiterating that, because it's all about us. We have to be the voice, otherwise there isn't one. So I really appreciate all the work you're doing, Susan. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I can see Peggy's been wanting to talk for a while, but I need to tell you guys about the Columbia Basin Restoration Initiative too. But let's see what Peggy needs to say. You're on mute, Peggy.
And thank you, Susan. It was a pleasure meeting you quite some years ago now, a few years ago, when you asked me to be on your podcast, and we talked about TokiTV, and I was like, we just had this great connection, and I so appreciate
I love you, Peggy.
Work.
You talked about the sperm whales too, you remember, and your interactions with them. That was so wonderful.
Yeah, so really grateful to you, and wanted to add a couple things that came to mind when Howard was speaking. And one point that I hope everybody will understand is when groups like K-Pod are seen down in Monterey, the distance that they had to travel, the amount of calories that they had to use, that's a lot for them to go that far to find food. And so that's one of the things that has been kind of brought up with nature and understanding animals, and the amount of caloric requirement to make, and then having to make up for that with the food that they eventually find. And so just so that people really understand how desperate the situation is and how important it is to reach these dams. And the other thing is, regarding what Howie is doing up on the property that Ken had set up and everything, that work on the river, remediating, I guess you could say, or just adjusting the conditions of the river so that it'll be ideal for the salmon to spawn. I'm just wondering, Susan, if American Rivers might be doing this already, or might consider, or if this is a valid idea, I don't know, to find out where there are rivers that are privately owned, or sections of rivers that are privately owned, that could be enhanced by private property owners to improve the habitat. Like,
yeah, it's a great question. Great question. And I think we use all sorts of different tactics, right, to help protect rivers. I don't know specifically about the Elwha, but I don't see why we wouldn't investigate that. And I could certainly talk to the Northwest team about that to see if there's some extra assistance we could lend with the tribe there. I don't know why we wouldn't, but Howard, you and I could maybe talk about that. Our work on the Elwha, American Rivers was certainly involved in the Elwha River dams coming down, but we were not the lead on that. Again, that was the tribe that was the lead on that. We helped with some of the legislation and that kind of thing. We're very connected to the state and federal government. So we definitely pushed on some of that, and we were there to support that, but more behind the scenes. But that's a great question, and I was thinking about it too, Peggy. So we should investigate that if you would like us to. I saw a great question that just flashed up on my screen about, okay, so 4% of the Pacific Northwest energy comes thanks to those dams, those hydro dams on the Lower Snake. How much to keep them maintained? It's a great question. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but it is way more money than I think we're getting value for. I think we can say that. That's the issue with these dams, right? I mean, they're not making sense anymore economically as well as environmentally.
I don't believe they ever really did actually produce a net gain of revenue because they cost so much to maintain. And then when the Chinook became listed as endangered in the late 90s and early 2000s, then the salmon, the mitigation attempts, all of these incredibly expensive contraptions and projects to barge and truck the smolts down and to try to ameliorate the damage done, the harm done to the smolts going downstream through the turbines and over the spillways. was just so devastating for them. They've tried, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of contraptions to try to soften the damage done, but it still can't be done. Those reservoirs kill smolts. When they're coming downstream, instead of being in a stream, they're in a stagnant lake, basically, and subject to all kinds of predation and disease. And so they don't make it downstream. And if they do, they're delayed. And if they make it to the ocean at all, they're harmed. They're already, debilitated and are not likely to survive well at sea. So
Yeah.
the money is spent to try to prevent that from happening, but it's just inherent in the fact that there are reservoirs, and the dams create reservoirs, and it's 140 miles of slack water. So they're not going to make it downstream in numbers and in robust health enough to be able to reproduce the populations. And that shows up in the smolt to adult ratio, the SARs, that are below 1%. So, that's not enough to actually reproduce the population. So it's the path to extinction. So it's a huge amount of money that is being spent. And I don't think there's any easy way to find the accounting for how much it is. It's, cleverly disguised in a lot of different ways. But, we know that those dams are money burners. They lose money. I mean, even though there is a charge for the barging, it's, a small fraction of the cost of maintaining the dams and the locks and everything that are into the hundreds of millions a year. About 10 years ago, the standard number was that $17 billion had been spent in about 17 years. I think they've cut back on the mitigation expenses since then, but it's still hundreds of millions of dollars of, it's either it's ratepayer money, so it's, higher rates, but it's also federal loans, basically, or loan guarantees. So there's no economic justification for keeping the dams.
Yeah, I see, and that's 83 million there that's for the maintenance for the dams, and then the stuff that Howard's talking about on top of that is all the mitigation that you need to do to keep the salmon alive, and so that's another tens or more of millions of dollars a year. And after doing that for all these years, of course, we're not seeing salmon rebound the way that they need to. And you'll see some interesting information out there from folks who are more on the pro dam side that will show, this is something to look out for. They'll show some figures that make it look like there's this great rebound happening. But when you look at those numbers through a historical lens, we are nowhere near where we need to be, and nowhere near the volumes of salmon that the tribes are aiming for, because, their treaty rights have been completely violated by all of this as well, as you guys know. It's not a good situation.
And I don't know if that was Deb. Yeah, there we go. Deb or Annette posted right there some numbers as far as the cost of keeping these dams going. That the more realistic number is about $269 million annually to keep these dams alive. Also, I'd like to add that another important factor to keep in mind is these are very old dams, and they're becoming rather decrepit, and apparently they're going to need even more than that much money to basically refurbish them and keep them active. And so the taxpayers are not being informed of the costs of this compared to having free-flowing rivers. And I saw on Dam Sense, their website, I was just trying to find the numbers, and so thankfully Annette or Deb Cruz found that number. But the value of breaching these dams, the value in breaching these dams would actually provide a lot of economic benefit and jobs, a lot more than people are being informed of. And so it's not like, oh, we have these stakeholders. Of course we need to look after the stakeholders, but on top of that, the benefit would be even further reaching. Yeah, here we go. Yep.
Not to mention that they have lots of chemicals and contaminants from the dams themselves that go into the rivers. There's lots of reasons why the dams need to go.
Yeah, the amount of methane gas that's produced by
Yep.
these dams is one.
Yep.
Yeah, from the slack
Arsenic,
water in the reservoirs.
lead, there's all kinds of stuff coming into those rivers from those dams.
Also, the level of evaporation of the water. That more recent study that came out, I think, is a few months ago, about how much water is evaporating behind those dams because of their dams.
Yeah, that was by Stockholm Institute. It was 30,400 acre feet a year. So anybody doesn't know what an acre foot is, right? That's like how much, a foot deep of water across an acre, 30,400 acre feet per year of water that is evaporating because of the dams. And then we can also talk about, the methane that's produced in those reservoirs behind the dams because of decomposing vegetation, bacterial overgrowth, that kind of thing. So now you also have methane that's being released, and methane is an extremely potent greenhouse gas. It's 80 times more powerful than carbon dioxide in the first 20 years that it's in the atmosphere. So yeah, it's just another good reason why we need to breach those dams.
So many reasons.
Can't think of too many good reasons to keep them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I have to comment. I loved the presentation that Susan put together of the Klamath River before and after. That was excellent. And
I wish it was my video. It was not.
Well,
But it is one that it's not mine, but it's beautifully done.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I just hope that we can visualize the same for the Snake River.
Exactly.
Very, very much so. Like, okay, this is what it is right now, but in the very, very near future, we will be seeing this, free flowing rivers, and to really hold that vision, the power of our visions.
Exactly right, Peggy. Yeah. It can happen. It does happen. And I think holding that vision collectively is extremely powerful. Certainly in my role in the communications field, I always talk about and make sure in any materials that I write, I'm talking about the dams when they come down, right? It's never if, it's always when. It's very powerful to be keeping that in mind whenever we're talking about this with our family and our communities. It's always when, and then holding that vision of them being removed. At some point it will happen, there'll be some tipping point, and then boom, we'll be on our way. But we have to get that momentum and get that to the place where we tip over.
Thanks,
Nice.
Susan.
I love that, Susan. Thank you for your positive affirmations every time you speak about the rivers and the dams coming down. That's exactly what I do. You have to hold that vision. It's really powerful. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, you bet.
Susan and I had a beautiful conversation a couple weeks ago, and just kind of a heart to heart, and prepping for the show and stuff. And one of the things that really struck me, and it stuck with me, Susan, since you said it, in different areas for me at work and my family and everything, is just this wide range of folks that we need everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just such a beautiful talk about, staying positive and thinking about things like that's really stuck with me, because we do need all of us, when it's from, the people out there with the megaphones and the people who are sitting at home praying. I mean, like, there's a wide range in the people who are, lobbying, and the people who are doing all this stuff. Like, we need every single person And Christina's kind of smiling because I just said this to the group in a different context of what we were talking about, and I was like, we need all of us, and that really did come from you, Susan. So thank you for
yeah.
with that a few weeks ago. I mean,
yeah. We were talking about the spectrum, right? And we were talking about people who are on the grassroots and are just like, they've breached the dams now, all the way kind of across to American Rivers, kind of maybe somewhere more in the middle, but definitely left leaning, and then all the way across to the folks who have fear about the dams coming down, and how we need to be able to listen to each other, including the people who have fear, and paint a vision of, a factually based vision on what it will look like and feel like in the Pacific Northwest when those dams are removed, and how great that is going to be really for everybody, And it's our responsibility to hand off to the next generations a Pacific Northwest region that is whole and is better than what was delivered to us. And so we need to get on track with that, and we need to do it really, really quickly. So everything everybody does, in whatever way you feel moved, please do it, because again, we don't know what the thing is that's going to be that last little feather that drops, and then we're over the edge. So please keep doing everything that you're doing. Just all of it is so important.
Thanks, Susan.
Yeah,
I want us to all take a couple of screenshots here. So for those of you watching on your phones, you'll take some screenshots. If you're watching on your computer, get your phone out. Susan has shared some links here. Let me take that. There we go. So everyone go ahead and take a screenshot or a picture with the links there. I know they're in the chat, but that way you just have it easy. I can see the people backstage, their phones out. I see Howard getting ready, almost taking a picture. There we go. Oh, I love your sticker, Howard, on the back of your phone.
Right. That says it all right there.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so there's that one. So everyone got that? Yeah? All right. And then this one.
Yeah, please, anybody, if you want to have any contact with me or have further questions, or have some ideas about how American Rivers might be able to help with something, please do reach out to me. I'd be really happy to have further conversations with anybody here.
And we know this, but it's an important reminder, everyone, take a screenshot of this. Life depends on rivers. All right, Howard, show everyone the back of your phone. Because everyone couldn't see it. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
That's Dana's lane.
Yeah, that's Dana Lyons.
That's Dana's.
Yes.
I want to give.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
I was just going to say, I want to kind of give you guys a little heads up about kind of where we might be facing in the last few minutes here, where we might be facing some real pushback going forward. So you may be aware of data centers and the growth of data centers to be able to essentially power the direction that our society is going in with artificial intelligence, so AI and cryptocurrency. That's creating a demand for more and more power. We could get into all of the ethics and the fact that that has not been a widely held discussion across our society about whether or not we want to go down those tracks. But that aside, it is also becoming potentially a reason why we can't get rid of any form of power that we might currently have. So you may see people talking about, well, how could we possibly remove any, hydropower at all in the Pacific Northwest when we have to supply power for crypto and AI? So be ready for that. There's some interesting things happening with the not the Bureau, let me get this right. Anyway, with the Bonneville Power and the markets that they are going to be joining. So they're making moves to move away from the Western states and the California market and move towards a new market for electricity. American Rivers and many other people are opposed to what they are doing there. There are links to the dams there. They're a little tenuous and hard to explain. And, it gets really wonky really quickly when we start talking about energy policy. And I understand that, but it is another area to watch because that could be another excuse or another delay in not bringing those dams down. So it's just an area to please watch.
I have a question about that. So wouldn't you recommend that people don't use those sorts of things? Like I just posted something about AI. I didn't even know. Actually, a friend of mine told me, and it was amazing how much water is being consumed and energy. I was like appalled. So I just stopped using it. So, I mean, to me, it was like a no-brainer. I mean, obviously you can't tell people what to do, but you can advise them to, being more environmental friendly.
I think a really powerful action to do is to watch what Bonneville is doing, and again, participate in any public workshops that are being offered and any public comment opportunity that is currently on the cards. So I think that's a potentially a more powerful way to have your voice heard. So I'm actually going to look for another link and I'll try and drop it into the chat if I can work out how to get to the chat. Otherwise, I can send it to you, Annette, and you could send it out.
That's fine.
Afterwards. But yeah, so Bonneville Power Administration, BPA, has some public comment opportunities coming up right now, specifically about their desire to change which market they are aligned with.
Great. And we'll find those on the American Rivers
website. I am in the middle of writing an action alert, so it will be going probably on Monday.
I'll look forward to that.
Probably tomorrow. So yeah, you should receive that if you're signed up.
Awesome. I want to remind folks some of the vision that Susan talked about, just to highlight real quickly from the American Rivers website. Again, guys, the American Rivers website, it's really, really well done, and there's a whole lot of information. So I really encourage people to go check that out, donate if you can, to keep up the amazing work that they're doing. But aren't these great visions? Protect 1 million miles of rivers, remove 30,000 harmful dams, and then there's the information there to back it up. Ensure clean water for every community, and champion a powerful river movement, which you guys are succeeding on. So those are great visions. Thank you, Susan. I just wanted to kind of to highlight those.
Thanks, Annette. And I'll just leave you guys with one other thought, and that is, we haven't talked about one of the elephants in the room, which of course is the current administration and the change of government at the federal level. And that's a whole other thing. But I can say that we know that clean water is really not a partisan issue. So we are feeling good about that. And we know that clean water is something, and particularly clean drinking water, is something that everybody cares about. It doesn't matter where you are along the political spectrum. Everybody needs clean water, and everybody knows that. So there you go. There's some great other information there about our current administration. And so we continue to push along those lines and lobby the federal government to make sure that we have clean water for our communities, clean water for our wildlife, clean water for everybody.
Absolutely. If you breathe air, eat food, and drink water, you're an environmentalist. You need to have a healthy environment. So I believe everybody really, it's nonpartisan, it's non-species, it's all of us who need clean air, clean water, and good food. I really appreciate your approach, Susan, and American Rivers in general. It's so heartening to see such a big and very influential organization to get behind removing the Snake River dams. And I like the vision that it's, there's a tipping point, and you never know how close you are to that until it tips. It could be no, 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 and all of a sudden, yes. And once it's yes, it's gung-ho, like Klamath River. So that's the vision I hold too. So thank you for telling us.
Yeah.
Did you send me that link, Susan? I
didn't, Annette. I will. It's just going to take me a minute to find it.
No, you're good. I go ahead, Peggy.
I'd like to add one vision, maybe even through video or something, showing the amazing Chinook salmon and how incredible these beings are, showing them thriving, showing them, like making their migratory path up a healthy river and spawning and showing. I mean, they work so hard to reproduce, to continue for all these millions of years on this planet. So just wanting to kind of put that out there, that maybe at times for people to visualize when we are envisioning free-flowing Snake River, also free, like Chinook being healthy and able to spawn, and seeing these incredible beings that have these lives that are so inspiring. Also, of course, our southern resident orcas, just showing, envisioning them, like just getting in the right positions to catch these Chinook and thriving. So I just, maybe we could hold a visualization at some time also, like a guided visualization of that as a part of our TokiTV or something. I don't know, just putting it out there.
That's a great idea. Howard?
I totally agree. It's good to meditate and visualize on what we want to see happen and what needs to happen, and the needs of the orcas and the salmon.
Well, we got to do it because Christina brought this up to me, like, I don't know, it's probably been about 4 weeks now. And then a few different people have randomly posted on Facebook on some of our stuff, hey, can you guys bring back the meditations, the Thursday night gatherings? And now Peggy saying that. I mean, I'm hearing it from just all these areas. So I don't know if I'll get this group together on Thursday, and maybe by next Thursday we can have something set up to start doing, because it's more, I don't want to say more important than ever, because it's always important, but it's very important right now for all of us to stay connected and on a positive, with what it is that we're creating for the southern residents and for the rivers and the forest, and really holding that space of these happening instead of being in fear of what's not happening right now, really getting together and visualizing what we know is going to happen in that vision that you kind of outlined for us as well, Susan. So yes, we'll start doing that. How about that on Thursdays?
Right.
So
I just sent you the BPA link in your email, Annette.
Okay, I'll look for that now. There's so much stuff, and it's like it's the end, and it's almost over. So let me copy that over. But I do want folks to go and see some of the podcasts. I'm going to put it on stage real quick. But here's the link, you guys. That's an easy one, right? www.bpa.gov/comments. Go ahead
So
and do
again,
that.
that's the Bonneville Power Administration's public comment period. You have until April 7 to put a comment in. The action alert that American Rivers sends out on Monday will have some language or some links to some language that you can use, because again, it's a wonky, power issue, but it's important.
All right. Anything before we close with the links to the podcast? Because I do want people to go back and hear some of them, because they're great. And I'm going to go back and re-listen to some of them. Howard, anything before we close?
I just want to encourage Susan to post anything on the Toki's Legacy Facebook page anytime.
Thank you.
I think we're in good sync.
Cool. Thanks, you guys.
Awesome. Alma?
Absolutely, Susan. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I love your visualizations. They're awesome. I think that Annette pegged it. They have no idea what they've got in you. I'm so happy that you're working there.
Oh, American Rivers is filled with people like me. It
Awesome.
really is. Yeah.
That's awesome. So thank you for everything you do. Thanks for coming.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Again, you're my inspiration, and it's through these connections with you that I even made this shift in my career in the way that I have. So right back at you. Thank you.
Awesome. Alma?
I just have to say I'm in love with the American Rivers mission. When you said the number to
Yeah.
30,000 harmful dams that I just got full body chills, and I am so in love with that mission, and we're behind you 100%.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for sharing your storytelling skills, your journalism in so many impactful ways, and speaking for the water that so many species depend on, the free-flowing rivers to survive. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excited for joining you and being behind this.
Love to
Thank
keep working with you guys. Somebody asked about that figure on acre feet. It's 30,400 acre feet per year that has been estimated to be evaporating from the reservoirs behind the four lower snake dams.
Wow.
Thanks, you guys.
All right, guys, go to sentientplanetpodcast.com. I'm just going to show you real quick. You go down to the bottom. There's great stuff on this first page. Look who that, let's see. Oh, look at that. There's Pig Yoki right there. You watched that one. And then I found out it's on 5. So if you go to this 5th page here, look at that first one there, the Podfather.
Oh, I love it.
Totally love that.
Yeah. Ken took me down to the Elwha. Yeah, what a great guy.
You guys want to go and listen to that. These are all about 30 minutes. There's Raina Priest. And then there's, bringing her home, claim to a captive orca, which, and then
yeah.
Also Dr. Chris Kevorkian, Understanding Environmental Grief. Guys, that would probably be a good one to listen to now. So these are all relevant today. So Susan, thank you so much for being with us. I'm really, really happy. Sorry for going over a little bit, but we could talk to you for hours and hours, and
we shall.
Yes. That sounds good to me.
Okay.
Anyone else have anything to say? Just go ahead and say it before I hit the little end button.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. Really appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you, Susan. Great to see you.
Thanks, Susan.
Thanks, Howard. Bye, everybody.